what you would do in a typical Agile scenario, and I appreciate some of you are on zero Agile, but what happens is in an Agile scenario is you tend to batch these ideas, you sort of prioritise this list in terms of the most important, so you put the most important change at the top, or the most important enhancement or idea at the top. You then batch them into things, maybe 2 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, and you work on that for say 2 or 4 weeks. And in Agile terminology, this is known as a sprint. If you take something like Scrum, and you evolve your product over time. You just keep every sort of 4 weeks or 2 weeks, you just evolve the product, and you grow and grow the products, an existing product, and you just keep adding to it and adding to it. Okay. Now this is the typical Agile scenario, but that is not a project. A project is when you've got something quite complex to do and a lot of uncertainty, and maybe, if I use the TomTom example, somebody sitting there going, should we make a sat-nav for cars? Should we make this product? Now in this sort of situation, you need to do some sort of upfront work. So in Prince 2 we call that SU, starting up a project. Now if you still think it's worth doing after you've done SU, you do a little bit more work, so IP if you like in Prince 2. And if you still think it's worth doing, you then decide to invest at this point here, and you then start to burn lots and lots of money, and you get on with your project. So if we take the Shard, for example, that big building, we've got, there's a little bit of paperwork and thinking here, there's a lot more thinking here, but as soon as you start construction, you start using up an awful lot of money as we get into execution here. Now on top of that, you actually need some level of what I would call project management sitting over the top of that to make sure it's worth actually doing. And even on top of that, you'd have something called project governance. So looking after, if I use a pound sign, looking after the money and the business case and such like. And at the end of a project, you'll probably close it down to commission it and send it off into an operational or service environment. Okay. Now importantly, this is a project over here. So if we say this is the sort of project type thing, and a word I often use for this is it's when things are difficult. Something's difficult, that's why it's a project. If something is reasonably routine, and some of those words up there, it's ongoing, you're adding stuff to a website and it's routine, then this is known as BAU, business as usual. Now the whole of Agile has come from here to start with, okay? So we're going to go into these on day 2, we'll talk about Scrum, but the most popular Agile method is called Scrum, and Scrum is based on working this way. But in Scrum there are no project mechanisms. There's no such thing as a business case or some sort of startup phase. There's no such thing as governance and project management in this sort of form. There is governance, but not this style of governance. And this term called project doesn't appear in Scrum. There is no such thing. And in fact, sometimes a lot of Agile that you read is extremely simplistic. One product owner, one backlog, and it's all very easy. But if you're doing some of the things like moving a data center from one place to another, that's not something you just do like making a sandwich. In fact, I often relate, this to sort of almost like making sandwiches really. It's pretty straightforward, you've done it several times, you know how long it's going to take. This to me is like making sort of Christmas lunch. That to me would be a major event. So a bit like a project. Now the reason this is important is because Prince 2 operates here and Prince 2 Agile operates here, but it doesn't operate here. Okay? If something is BAU, you're not using Prince 2 Agile. But you see this sort of idea of making products here, that goes on in here just like it would in a BAU environment. So we can use all the Agile ideas like Scrum over here, and we can use them over here in the delivery element, okay? But the secret to success here is trying to get a blend between the Agile stuff going on at delivery and the project stuff and the Prince 2 stuff going on here to give us control and governance. We don't want parallel universes, we actually want these things to sort of blend and weave together, and I'll show you how we do that.